His new self-published book by Amazon.com's Create Space is called Katrina's Secrets, Storms After the Storm. Please welcome to the program, Ray Nagin. Sir.
You know, I'm good, John. How about you?
I'm doing very well. Explain this to me. This is self-published.
Yeah, self-published through Create Space. I had spoken with a couple of agents and just didn't get comfortable that my voice would come through. Because once you turn over your manuscript to a publisher, you never know what will happen.
They would just twist it around and
they wanted me to tone it down, tone it up.
What was in there that you felt like, because there were some things in there that I was somewhat surprised at. When I read the governor of your state, Kathleen Blanco at the time, does not come out well in this book.
Really?
She did. Have you seen the book?
I've seen the book.
Self-published, but
yeah, but
not ghostwritten. You wrote it.
Yeah, I wrote it. Every word.
You thought she came out okay? There's a scene in the book where you describe her as, because you supported her opponent Bobby Jindal in the governor's race, that she says to you, this is like a week before Katrina, you will pay for this. Vengeance will be mine. Like, it was like, I mean, it makes it seem like her response to New Orleans and Katrina was a personal vendetta against you.
Yeah, she told me that they would be held to pay. And I think Katrina qualifies.
So you think she conjured up the storm?
No, I'm not saying she conjured up the storm, but I think there was some residuals from...
What, I mean, is she that petty an individual that she would say, oh, people are suffering at the Superdome?
I don't think so.
Ray Nagin doesn't get water from me. He doesn't get water.
You know, I don't think so, but I think there was some... You know, politics played a role in this, the response. I mean, we had a Republican president, a Democrat governor, and I was a Democrat. But the governor and I didn't get along very well before the storm. But, you know, we had some things going on above.
Louisiana is a relatively, and I say this with all due respect, dysfunctional. It is a dysfunctional and somewhat... the words...
It's had a colorful history.
Have oftentimes...
It's had a colorful history.
Right. So wouldn't you say that partisanship played less in this than maybe the political culture in Louisiana?
There was a couple of things going on. Okay. Partisan politics, you know, the governor and I, and then there was this thing called posse communis, which was a law that was in effect. So the governor and the president was basically dancing and deciding who would control the resources, who would control the recovery, and that slowed down the recovery more than anything.
The point of the book is that 24-hour period when the governor and the president met, and he would not supersede her authority, and she...
Well, he said he wouldn't, but later she did not give him the authority, but he took it anyway a few days later.
Right. Well,
so he had the authority all along.
Right. At a certain point, he said, enough. But as much as you can blame FEMA and the president's response, for him to, in essence, say to a governor, well, you say you've got this under control, I'll give you some benefit of the doubt.
Right.
But you know what's here's what struck me about that. When you talk about resources, and this kind of blew my mind, when you did the mandatory evacuation, and this was on the Saturday night, Sunday morning is when Saturday night you got the bad weather report.
From
Sunday morning,
Mayfield,
right, you said, I'm going to make this a mandatory evacuation.
Yeah.
In the evacuation notice, it says, come to the Superdome. If you can't get out, bring supplies, food and water.
For 2 to 3 days.
Right. I'd never heard that in a disaster, and that might be my ignorance, but especially for people who are too poor to get out, the idea that they'd be like, let's pack our cooler with turkey and sandwiches, and like, I've never heard of that. Why didn't the city of New Orleans have the Superdome stocked with water rather than relying on people too poor to get away to, let's say, bring their own bottled water?
Well, we did. We had some supplies in the Superdome, but we wanted to make sure that, you know, whoever showed up, that they would at least have something to supplement that, because we really didn't know. We planned for 2 or 3 days, but it ended up being 6 to 7 days before help really came.
Right. So would you, in retrospect, would you say, though, that also was that New Orleans itself had not seriously enough considered the real ramifications of this type of terrible storm, or you really feel like it was?
I don't think anyone anticipated that Hurricane Katrina would do what it did. If it wasn't for the failure of the levees, keep in mind the first reports that came out.
But there were people saying the levees could overcome. I mean, you've seen that.
They've been saying it for 30, 40 years, but they never did. So they finally...
But that's like saying, like, you know, they say these tornadoes, they can, you know, tear up entire towns, but, you know, since they don't, we decided not to build basements. And then, you know, like that, don't you think in some respects there's a responsibility for the local? I mean, I'm just saying...
Don't get me wrong. Look, there were mistakes made on my part. I could have done a lot of things better. But when you look at the entire scene that happened, we got out about 96% of the people, got them out of harm's way. And I don't think any other city has been able to evacuate. I think if New York tried to evacuate, if there was a major storm.
We just all
what happened?
We just stand by the water.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then one guy goes, let's swim. So what do you, what are you doing now? What is your business now?
I am doing disaster consulting. I'm doing public speaking. And I'm writing a book.
New Orleans, you're all right. I'm doing disaster consulting. I sell haircut products. No. Katrina Secrets is available for purchase now on Amazon.com. Ray Nagin, everybody.